I have a friend. Her name's Vanessa. Maybe you've heard of her. She moved to Boston a while back. I was living in Costa Rica. And whenever we spoke on the phone or we caught up, we would always joke about how I was going to move back to Boston and we were going to live in the same city again. And we were just going to have the life we used to have when we were undergrads in college back in St. Louis. A couple of years ago, I was trying to decide what to do with my life. And suddenly everything came together. And I was enrolled in divinity school in Boston and a couple of minutes away from Vanessa again. We started to live what we had joked about for so many years. Has that ever happened to you where there's a joke with your friends, with your spouse, with your partner, and suddenly life has a way of bringing that joke to the front? My guest today, Marina, has been joking with her girlfriend about getting married. And today, her question on the podcast is, should I get married to my girlfriend? I'm Mauricio Bruce, and this is The Real Question. Hi, Marina.
Hi.
Listen, I'm very excited that you're here. I'm very excited that this is the first month that I'm doing this show, and you're here as one of the first guests. So thank you for that.
I'm honored to be here.
And I'm really excited to hear what's the question that you're bringing to our show today.
Yes, the question that I have on my mind is whether or not I should legally marry my girlfriend.
Oh, that's a juicy question. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Yes. So this was a question that I started talking about with my girlfriend a little bit before the election took place, and started sort of as a joke because we've been together for such a limited amount of time. But then the election took place and it became less funny. So yeah, that was sort of the turning point in the question for us about whether we want to have the sort of protections that legal marriage would give us, and also in case marriage for a lesbian couple becomes something we're not able to access anymore.
Yeah. Tell me, you mentioned the limited time you've been together. How long have you been together?
We've been together since last March. So we like to say coming up on a year.
Yeah, you're going to be a year soon. Before the election, you said you were joking around. So before the election, when you were thinking about marriage or joking with marriage, was it still because of the election, or was there an idea that you would get married regardless of the election?
It was, maybe we should get eloped. Maybe we should just do that. I know a lot of people are probably going to. Maybe we should be one of those couples. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
So,
as you sit here thinking about it, I mean, I'm sure you've thought quite a bit about it. What are your feelings around it?
My first feeling is that I really love my girlfriend. So that's the first thing that comes to mind, is that either way, I'm going to continue to really love my girlfriend, as far as I'm aware. And because of the way that our relationship has worked out, I will be bringing her with me to Florida, which is where I'm from. Okay. To Florida, which is this so contested state, you know?
Yes.
I mean, we're in South Florida, which is like, there's a gay enclave that's not so much a lesbian enclave. But either way, with her being so far from her family, we've thought a lot about, it would be nice to have that sort of comfort of being able to say, oh, we have ourselves bound this way.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Just to clarify, you're saying you're bringing her down to Florida. Where is she?
She is from Massachusetts, Salem, Massachusetts, and has spent her whole life in Massachusetts, went to school in Boston, and has never really spent so much time in the South. And maybe if we were going to stay in Massachusetts, this wasn't going to be as big of a question to us.
Mm-hmm.
But the Florida of it all has really put sort of an emphasis on it.
Thank you for that. I have a bunch of questions. When I asked you about emotions, you said the main emotion is I really love my girlfriend. And I think I just want to highlight that. And I just want to say this and have you confirm it. This marriage is about love. It's not about fear.
Yes, it would be about our love for each other and a desire to protect one another. It started, I think, in fear, but I think the way that we're thinking about it now would be about our love for one another.
And can I ask you just for a second to reflect on the difference between those two? What would a marriage of fear and a marriage of love, how are they different for you?
I think that at first it was something that we were thinking of very insulated just within the two of us as a decision we would have made privately and just so that the two of us know and have the comfort. But now as we've evolved the idea of it, we've taken into consideration the opinions of our families a little bit. Not that we would make it, it would be an elopement, but it would be also something that includes the people around us. And that's where I think it has evolved and changed.
It would be a celebration.
A celebration. One would hope.
As we make this clear, or as we talk about this, I'm just curious, what keeps you from saying yes?
Maybe just outside perception is something that we've both thought about because we've moved into this quickly. And also we don't come from families that have a lot of queer people in them, or much less queer marriages and relationships that are recognized in that way.
Yeah.
So I've also thought a lot about my parents. They were married very quickly and they also divorced. So that's something for me. Her parents took longer and then are still together. You know, we come from those two different kinds of households. And my parents were also young. My girlfriend and I are 22 and 24. So we've already broken the age that my parents were. My mom was freshly 21. And I remember when I turned 21, I was like, wow, I could not imagine making that decision right now. But then this past year and meeting my girlfriend, I was like, oh, I kind of do understand why my mom did make that decision. Young and in love, you know? So, yeah, I think that a lot of it is what would people think and how we would want to respond to that.
So there's some interesting stuff there because there's these two family stories. If we marry young, we end up divorced. Or if we marry quickly, we end up divorced. If we take our time, we stay together. Mm-hmm. So the first fear I heard there is, is this too quick?
Yeah. Another interesting familial connection with marriage as a concept are my maternal grandparents, who did also do a young, quick marriage and then divorced and then remarried and then divorced and then remarried and are still together to this day.
Pardon, I'm going to ask a clarifying question there. When you said divorced and married, divorced to the same people? Like they divorced and married each other 3 times?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. They're not like ashamed of this, but that is their story.
Why should they be ashamed?
I guess to me, maybe I have this perception of divorce as failure, even though my parents, I would say their divorce was a success for for their overall happiness and the happiness of our family. And I also don't, to bring in a theme of the podcast, I don't think of quitting as a failure necessarily, quitting or changing something. I was a high school dropout, and that was a huge success for me. I've done some big quits that I am very proud of, but maybe divorce to me still sounds scary.
So now I want to ask you, just because divorce, you're setting it up as a potential failure. You're telling me marriage is a legal promise or a legal commitment between two people. You're also telling me marriage is public. It's in front of my friends. It's in front of my family. But I'm curious, more with your girlfriend, what does marriage represent or mean to you other than this public show of love and this legal commitment?
I think first and foremost, it would be a promise between us and a form of, even just between the two of us, a protection, something that we would view as protection. Yeah, and that a promise can be comforting. That's what first comes to mind.
Marina, as we talk and as we explore this idea, this promise, this commitment, what's coming up for you? Are there any emotions that are showing up? Are there any ideas that are appearing? I just want to see what this conversation does to you.
I'm surprised by the looming presence of that idea of divorce. I don't try to characterize myself as a divorced family kid. It has colored my experiences, but I was surprised that I do have a negative connotation behind it.
Yeah. Can you tell me how divorce affected your life?
It meant that I had to be two different kinds of people at the same time. I had two different houses. I had two different ways of being in my different houses. I felt very much fragmented as a kid.
Mm-hmm. As you have considered marriage to your girlfriend and seeing what you're calling the looming presence of divorce, has it loomed over your potential marriage? Have you thought about it?
Yeah, we have discussed things like a prenup agreement. So we have discussed the ways of making that a smooth process if it does come to pass.
I'm just trying to understand what's keeping you from just saying, hey, I really love this woman. I want to marry her. Let's go. Right? You brought the question to the podcast to say, should I?
Yeah.
So, Marina, I want to go back to something you said earlier. You mentioned a big part of what was causing you hesitation was other people's perception of you being too young or your relationship being too new. Is there any part of you that's afraid that you're actually being naive? Or is the worry just about what other people will think?
Yeah, I think I feel pretty sure, whether now or not, it's something that I want. It's more of, is it now or later?
You just said, Marina, whether now or later, this is something that I want. I want to marry my girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that is making you decide whether it's now or it's later is?
Outside perception.
Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah. And this is actually something that my girlfriend has helped me to grow away from, but I'm very concerned about being judged or treated as if I'm naive. I was raised being told I was very precocious and very mature. So the antithesis of that is something that I don't want to be. So to have this decision of mine that I'm sure about and that I would hope my girlfriend would also be sure about if we do decide to do this, be perceived as naive or a bad decision would affect me, I think.
So this decision, this conversation that we're having is between Marina, who's sure this is what I want, either now or later, and the potential outside perception of Marina is being naive. Marina is doing it too quickly. Marina is setting herself up to fail. Is there a particular person whose judgment you're afraid of?
I think the people in my life who I take their opinion most seriously are my mother and my maternal grandmother, who are the two people I've referenced, having these histories of complicated marriages themselves. But yeah, I do think that their perception of my choices mean the most to me.
Have you discussed the potential marriage with them?
I have with my mother, and she hasn't made any attempts to make me not make this decision, but she has sort of questioned and probed, are you sure? Are you sure? So that has sort of shown me her implicit feelings. But also I know that my mother and my whole maternal family, they have taken a great liking to my girlfriend in such a quick amount of time. They do really encourage the relationship, and same with my girlfriend's family. So I know we have support, which is, I mean, so much. I am so thankful for that. I know so many people that don't.
So your mom's "are you sure" is the question that sort of hovers.
Yeah. I think if she had said, that's a smart idea, you should consider that, I would be, oh, she thinks that's a smart idea. So the fact that she did it did sort of knock me down a peg.
Marina, earlier you told me that as a child of divorce, you'd had to become two Marinas. You also told me that Marina, young Marina, was always seen as precocious, and you ran with the adults, and you were always sort of a few steps ahead. And now the Marina that I'm meeting is standing in front of the decision and wondering, should I marry my girlfriend? And I feel like those two Marinas are standing here. One that says, I know this is what I want. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go ahead. I'm the precocious Marina. I'm setting myself up for success, maybe. And then there's the other Marina that says, what if I fail? What if I disappoint mom? What if I disappoint grandma? They're not telling me to go ahead. They're not encouraging me. They're not telling me the words I want to hear. And that Marina steps back a little bit in fear. I need them to back me up. So I'm wondering, is there a way that those two Marinas can come together and sort of, rather than be the fragmented Marina, be a Marina that can be whole, where the precocious Marina can hold the other Marina's hand and say, I'm here. We can do this. You've got my approval. Let's do this together. How does that sound?
Good. And it also reminds me that I've done that before. I've made big decisions that I didn't have backing for. This one just feels different in a way, maybe because in other experiences, I was doing something that no one I knew had made the decision to do before. This one, I feel like maybe I should be leaning on their wisdom in a way.
So there's nothing here that says you shouldn't or that you can't lean on their wisdom. They're there, and they have not taken their support away. They haven't told you shouldn't do this. They haven't said it's a bad decision. They just, you said, what was it that you would have liked your mom to have said?
I think that's a good idea. Do that.
Yeah. When I was 25, I came suddenly to the realization that I had never made a big decision in my life without asking for my parents' opinion. Like every car I was going to buy, I was like, do you like it, Mom? And my mom would be like, oh, sure. And I'm like, well, do you? Right? Slowly, I was able to sort of gain more confidence in myself to start making decisions and then informing them about them rather than asking their permission to make decisions about me and my life. So the fact that you're standing here being able to make decisions and still wanting to get a little backup from your parents, I think is completely acceptable. But also, I want you to be able to sort of look at yourself and notice the power that you have, your precociousness, your independence, the Marina that has always accompanied you, who has always sort of been a couple of steps ahead, running with the adults. And just as you want to sort of lean into your mom and your grandma's wisdom, to also lean into your own and trust that precociousness and trust that Marina that has brought you this far. Is that helpful?
Yes. Thank you. To hear also that, I've gotten myself this far means a lot. Yeah, it's true. I have. I've made a lot of decisions that have gotten me to here. So.
And you've made decisions that are unconventional.
Yes, I have. And I will probably continue to. So
can I ask you in a couple of months,
yeah.
Can I call you back and you can give me an update?
Yes. Yeah. I have a feeling that in a couple months, once we're settled back in Miami, we'll be coming to another point of making a decision. So, yeah.
Yes, I'm not going to push you to make a decision now or to tell me what decision you've made. But I do hear, or as we've spoken, the question underneath for me was not, should I marry? The question was more about, should I trust myself? Or do I still have to lean in and trust others? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that rings very true to me. Because the first person that I reached out to after the election happened and it became a very real possibility was my mom. I very quickly sought reassurance. So that rings very true.
I think it's a beautiful question, and one that we should all constantly ask ourselves. Thank you for bringing it to the show.
Unknowingly.
Marina, we'll see you and talk to you soon.
Thank you.
You've been listening to The Real Question. Our show is funded through our Patreon at patreon.com/realquestionpod. If you are a regular listener, we would love your support. Another way you can support this show is by leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Real Question Pod. And we are always looking for more guests. Go to our website, realquestionpod.com, to submit a voicemail and a question, and you could be on the show. We love to shout out our BFF tier patrons: Molly Reilly, Renee Underhill, Becky Boo, Jenny Cruz, Amanda Schramm, and Shannon Chien. We are a Not Sorry production. Our executive producer is Vanessa Zoltan. We are edited and produced by Ariana Nettleman. Music is by Nick Bowl, and we are distributed by Acast. Support for the show comes from the Fetzer Institute. Thanks, Marina, for joining us today and for bringing your vulnerable and beautiful question. And thanks as always to our wonderful team: Julia Argy, Nikki Zoltan, AJ Yaramas, Anissa Ahmed, Danny Langley, Courtney Brown, Casper Turkile, and Stephanie Paulsell. We will see you next week.